People often talk about the bravery of soldiers when they think about why America won World War II. And yes, the soldiers were incredibly brave. But today, I want to tell you about something that most people completely overlook. I want to talk about factories, machines, workers, and the greatest industrial effort in all of human history. Because here is the truth. America did not just win World War II on the battlefield. We won it in the factories. We won it in the shipyards. We won it on the assembly lines where men and women worked around the clock, 7 days a week, to build more weapons, more planes, and more ships than the world had ever seen before. This is the industrial secret that changed the outcome of the war, and once you understand it, you will never look at World War II the same way again. Let us get into it. To really understand what America did during World War II, I need to take you back to the 1930s first. During the Great Depression, America was struggling badly. Millions of people had no jobs. Factories were either closed or running at half capacity. The country was in real pain. But underneath all that struggle, something important was still there, a massive industrial foundation that was just waiting to wake up. America had rivers, railways, and raw materials in huge amounts. We had steel mills in Pittsburgh, car factories in Detroit, and shipyards on both coasts. We had engineers, inventors, and workers who knew how to build things fast and build them well. All of that was sitting there, mostly quiet, through the Depression years. Then the war came, and everything changed in a way nobody had ever seen before. In December 1940, even before America officially entered the war, President Franklin D. Roosevelt gave a famous speech. He said America must become the arsenal of democracy. He meant that America needed to use its industrial power to help the countries fighting against Nazi Germany and Japan. And that is exactly what we started doing. Even before we were officially in the war, American factories were already producing guns, tanks, and planes to send to Britain and the Soviet Union. Then on December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And suddenly, America was not just supplying the war, we were in it. And what happened next in our factories was truly one of the most remarkable things I have ever read about in history. Here is something that will blow your mind. The Ford Motor Company had the biggest automobile factory in the world at a place called Willow Run in Michigan. Before the war, that factory made cars. After Pearl Harbor, the government called Ford and said, "We need bombers." And Ford said, "We will build them." Within months, that same factory that used to make cars started producing B-24 Liberator bombers. By the peak of production, Willow Run was building one complete bomber every single hour. Think about that. One massive 4-engine bomber every hour, coming off the assembly line like clockwork. People started calling it Willow Run, and it became a symbol of what American industry could do when we put our full effort into something. And Ford was not alone. General Motors, Chrysler, Boeing, Douglas Aircraft, Grumman, all across the country, factories that used to make peaceful everyday things shifted completely to war production. Refrigerator companies started making machine guns. Toy factories started making helmets. Typewriter factories started making rifles. America basically said, "We will build whatever it takes to win this war, and we will build more of it than anyone thought possible." During the war years from 1941 to 1945, America produced over 300,000 aircraft. We built more than 86,000 tanks. We launched over 8,800 naval vessels, and we completed around 2,700 Liberty ships, the cargo ships that carried supplies to our allies all around the world. Germany and Japan together could not come close to matching those numbers. Not even close. In fact, by 1944, America alone was producing about 40% of all the weapons being made in the entire world. One country, 40% of the whole world's weapons. That is an almost impossible number to wrap your head around, but it happened, and it is a big part of why the Allies were able to keep fighting, keep pushing, and eventually win. Now here is the part of the story that I think is the most human and the most moving to me personally. Who actually built all of these things? It was ordinary people, farmers, teachers, store clerks, and housewives who had never worked in a factory a day in their lives. But the war needed workers, and people answered that call by the millions. One of the most famous symbols of this era is Rosie the Riveter, the image of a woman in a bandana, flexing her arm with the words, "We can do it." During the war, over 6 million women entered the American workforce for the very first time. They operated heavy machinery, welded steel, tested aircraft engines, and did every kind of industrial job you can imagine. They were essential. Without them, the production miracle could not have happened. One of the things that made American industrial production so powerful was not just the size of it, it was the speed. Americans found ways to build things faster than anyone thought possible. A perfect example is the Liberty ships I mentioned earlier. Before the war, building a large cargo ship took about a year. That was considered normal and acceptable. But during the war, a man named Henry Kaiser figured out a new way to build ships. Instead of building each ship from scratch in one place, his team used prefabricated parts, pieces that were built separately in different places and then welded together at the shipyard. Using this method, Kaiser's shipyards cut the average building time for a Liberty ship down to about 42 days. And once, just to prove what was possible, one of his teams built a complete Liberty ship in just 4 days and 15 hours. The world could not believe what they were seeing. This kind of innovation and problem-solving attitude ran through American industry during the war. People were constantly asking, how can we do this faster? How can we do this better? And the answers they found changed not just the war, but manufacturing and industry around the world for decades to come. I think one of the most powerful ways to understand just how overwhelming American production was is to look at it through the eyes of the enemy. Japanese Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the man who planned the attack on Pearl Harbor, is reported to have said after the attack something very haunting. He said he feared that Japan had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with a terrible resolve. And he was right. German leaders also understood the danger. When American production numbers started becoming clear to them, some of the top German commanders knew the war was going to be very, very hard to win. Adolf Galland, a famous German fighter pilot ace, said that when American-built planes started appearing in massive numbers over Europe, German pilots knew the math was not in their favor. They could shoot down planes all day, and American factories would replace them faster than they could be destroyed. That is what industrial power looks like when it is fully unleashed. The enemy could fight bravely, and they did, but they simply could not keep up with the endless flow of American machines, weapons, and supplies pouring into the war from across the ocean. Of course, all of this production came with real sacrifice from ordinary Americans back home. The government introduced rationing programs, which meant that everyday items like gasoline, rubber, meat, butter, and sugar were limited. People could not just buy as much as they wanted. They had to use ration books and coupons to get their share. And I think that shared sense of purpose and sacrifice is actually one of the most important parts of this story. When an entire nation comes together and decides that winning is more important than comfort, more important than personal convenience, that is when extraordinary things become possible. America in World War II is the most powerful example of that in modern history. The lesson I take away from all of this is simple but powerful. Wars are not won by weapons alone. They are won by the people and the systems behind those weapons. Germany had excellent soldiers and excellent military technology. Japan had incredible bravery and skill, but neither of them could match what America built inside its own borders during those 4 years. And that, more than anything else, is why we won. And if you're wondering why America became a superpower after World War II, it might be better if you just watch this video right here. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If this story moved you the way it moves me every time I read about it, please give this video a like and share it with someone who loves history. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do it now so you never miss a video. I will see you in the next one.